Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu, and I'm back with another Digimon spoilers video. So, over the past couple of days, we definitely got a lot more spoilers as we are getting closer to the Japanese release of their Booster Set 4 Great Legend. So, let's just dive right in. First up, we have a new version of Commandramon. So, Commandramon, before, he just was a couple of blah vanilla cards doing some, vanilla things. But now we have a more interesting Commandramon in the fact that he has this really nice when destroyed ability where you get to look at the top 3 cards of your deck and choose a Commandramon from among them and play them without paying its cost, and then the rest go to the bottom. So this is a good way to utilize all of the other Commandramons because not only can he search out one of those, he also can search out himself with his ability. And this ability is generally something really, really good because previously we saw Darkdramon wants you to return D Brigade cards to the top of your deck. So you could use Commandramon here to help set up your Darkdramon, and it's definitely slowly forming a D Brigade black deck, which I think is going to be a pretty decent deck considering it's looking like it's going to be doing some rather unique things that black kind of has been alluding to that it's going to start doing, but this is definitely something a little bit more unique to black. Next up, we have Sealstroman. So Sealstroman is another D Brigade card, and this is looking like it's just the D Brigade blocker. So this is definitely looking like it's going to be a pretty decent card, and again, blocker usually is a mechanic where you want to use it more defensively, so he has the when attacking a clause of minusing 2 memory, but that's okay if you use this more defensively because, again, Darkdramon is that unifying card where you want this to block an attack, save you some security, it's in the drop, Commandramons are also in the drop, and then you just slam down Darkdramon and try to swing and push for game that way. So I definitely like the idea that they gave a D Brigade card blocker, and I think this is going to see a lot of play in that D Brigade deck that's slowly forming. Next up, we have Gokumamon. So Gokumamon is a level 5 black Digimon. Stats aren't anything too particular to note here, but he does have the main ability of Digiburst 1, and his Digiburst abilities, you get to choose 1 Digimon and add 2000 DP to it till the end of the opponent's turn. So this is pretty good for not only black blockers, because you could target a Digimon, this Digimon included, Digivolve up into a blocker, and then that blocker will retain that buff all the way through the opponent's turn. So I definitely think this card is pretty good for that, on top of which he also has the inheritable skill, where during both players' turn, this card just has 1000 DP boost. So he almost pseudo-permanently buffs the Digimon he Digivolves into, which again, for blockers, that's pretty good, but Blastmon is kind of the card that he is supposed to generally interact with, so it's definitely going to be a pretty decent ability to have. Next up, we have Blastmon, and Blastmon is definitely looking to be a really powerful card. So the first big thing to note is that Blastmon, for his level, has some slightly higher DP than a lot of other Digimon, on top of having basically a very average Digivolution cost. So he is definitely going to be a really powerful card when you Digivolve into him, especially if you stack him with some pretty decent inheritables. And then on top of which, he innately has the security attack +1, which is really good because black just hasn't really had a good way of dealing lots of damage outside of Ragnarlordmon and Metal Greymon in the inheritable sources of whatever mega you're playing. So seeing black definitely have some more native higher damage dealing Digimon is definitely something very good for the color. And then on top of which, he has a pretty unique when attacking ability where your opponent gets to choose one of their Digimon in the active state, and then that Digimon becomes the target of the attack when this card is attacking. What that kind of just means is that your opponent gets to pick if they want to block it with any of their active Digimon, which is a lot more powerful than what people might think, where it's just oh, but that just means that my damage won't get through. But on the inverse side, it means that he has a very, very high chance of killing almost anything on the opponent's board, and right now we're in like a good board controlled meta where some of the decks that are topping the most have very efficient board control options, and this is basically like doing kind of a alternate form of board control where it's just like if the opponent has rested Digimon, then you're going to be dealing them security damage. Otherwise, they have the option to have you pick off their Digimon at their request. So it's definitely going to be a very, very unique and very, very interesting card to look out for. Next up, we have Mock Gaugamon. So with Thomas soft confirming that Gaugamons are going to be in the set, this is just a Gaugamon, so it's not a shocker that we're seeing it, but this Gaugamon is looking to be pretty decent considering he has the main ability of Digiburst 2, and then his Digiburst abilities, you get to choose one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon and return it to their hand. So it's definitely looking like the Gaugamon line is going to focus a little bit more on bouncing cards to the opponent's hand, so that way they could use Thomas's effect to get them to 8 cards in their hand through the act of putting cards back. So that's just going to be pretty decent of a strategy considering bouncing is a solid form of removal that blue has access to, and then Thomas will give that whole multi-attacking thing, so I'm definitely looking forward to seeing where this line can go. And then on top of which, it looks like he has the inheritable skill. During your turn, if you have a blue tamer, this Digimon gets plus 2000 DP, which DP boost in blue is pretty welcome considering they don't really have a lot of forms of DP boosting. So having a good DP boosting just for having a tamer out is definitely a really welcome thing. Next up, we have Bushi Agamon. So Bushi Agamon is just a rookie with haste in yellow. So he is a rookie that has a cost of 5, which we really haven't seen a whole lot of before. And he has the haste ability, so that means when you play him for his initial play cost, then he could attack right away, which is going to be a very, very powerful card. So I think this is going to be a decent card for something like Rookie Rush to really think about, where it's just like, okay, I have a whole bunch of these more efficient cards, so let me play one of these bigger cards where if I force my opponent to give me lots of memory, then I can hard punish them with Bushi Agamon. So I definitely think this card is going to be a card to look out for, and it's definitely going to be a big game changer for the Rookie Rush deck and for some other potential yellow decks, because now this is a very aggressive card in yellow, which yellow hasn't really been that aggressive of a color before. So this is just going to be an overall interesting card to look out for, just because of his more aggressive nature. Next up, we have Cerberus Man. So this is a purple form of Cerberus Man. Stats aren't anything too special to talk about, and he does have the when destroyed ability of drawing 2, then discarding 1. So that's just nothing really new and nothing really different that purple wasn't already doing. Purple kind of already had a card like this in the form of Pumpkinmon, except that was an inheritable skill, and this is just a native ability, so it definitely is going to be a pretty interesting card to look to see how it's going to be used going forward. Because, again, purple has a lot of self-sacrificing and self-destroying synergy, so it's not like it's going to be very hard to destroy this on your own, to not only draw you cards, but set up your graveyard, or drop, or trash, whatever you prefer to call it. And then he just is going to be a pretty interesting card to think about utilizing. Next, we have Cerberus Man Werewolf Mode. So this is a pretty interesting Digimon considering it's a level 5 that costs 9 and has 9000 DP. So costing 9 is usually pretty expensive, but he does have some nice DP to help back him up. And then he has the haste ability, which, again, 9 is really expensive, which means it's going to pass over to the opponent's turn, but he has a when played ability that mitigates the 9 cost. So his ability is when played, you get to destroy 1 Cerberusmon on your field, and you gain 9 memory. So obviously, he's supposed to synergize with the other Cerberusmon, so that way you could get the draw 2 discard 1, and then you play this Cerberusmon to attack the opponent's security the second you play him because of his when played ability, where he just gives you 9 memory back for destroying the Cerberusmon. So this is pretty interesting because you could also theoretically use the blue Cerberus Mon to get this ability off. So if you're like daring enough to play the blue Cerberus Mon, you could splash in Werewolf Mode just for this ability, just for haste. So that's definitely one thing interesting to think about, but I just think this is just another way of using haste, and I think that having these conditions attached to the mechanic is definitely a more smart way than just saying, okay, this card just has haste, and like haste is just going to be a very, very powerful ability no matter what. So attaching conditions definitely helps make it so it's not super prominent or super prevalent, because it does require some setup to do. Next up, we have Anubisman. So Anubisman is a new purple mega, and stat-wise isn't anything too special to talk about, but he does have two very, very powerful abilities. So his first ability is when you Digivolve into him, you get to choose one level 3 Digimon in your trash and play it without paying its cost. So that's pretty good considering you do get its on-play effect, and it's not exactly hard-locked to purple. So that's just already something really interesting to note, is that purple is starting to slowly shy away from a lot of its restrictions before. And then on top of which, it has a nice ability where during your turn, Digimon that you play from your trash gain haste. So not only is he going to be spawning a body on board that isn't restricted, you do get its on play, and on top of that, it will just have haste because of Anubisman's passive ability. So this is just a very, very powerful card to think about utilizing in a whole bunch of different decks, just because we already know purple likes to revive stuff. So even just cards like Time for Revenge and Grizzly Wing, it just allows you to just replay a lot of your cards and then give them haste. And haste is obviously going to be a very, very powerful mechanic, just because the on-play attacking is just going to be very, very powerful, especially in a color like purple, where you don't necessarily care if your stuff lives or dies because a lot of purple has on-death synergy. So, like, I'm already theorizing a world where you're using this with BT4's Metal Garurumon, where on attack you get to revive a level 3. So you could pair that up with Anubisman to just get some more haste value out of that. And then on top of which, if you have the Garurumon in the inheritable sources of said Metal Garurumon, then if the Digimon lives through the security check, you sacrifice it to stand Metal Garurumon up, swing again, spawn a new dude, it has haste, and kind of just rinse and repeat for a whole bunch of attacks in purple, which is definitely really, really unique and an interesting thing to think about. And that's just one possibility that this card can bring to the table and really shake up the foundation of not only what purple can do, but just what can be done in the game. So I definitely really, really like this card, and I think this card is going to be really, really decent to think about playing. Next up, we have a new Hikari. So this new Hikari is a purple tamer that costs 3, and her ability is during both players' turns, when your security is reduced, you can rest this card. If you do, add 1 memory. And then her security effect is the same as all of the others. So this kind of already is playing into that Dan Devimon theme, where it's just like you want to reduce your own security to gain some additional benefits, or if the opponent is reducing your security, then you're just going to be gaining some additional benefits. And this is really interesting to think about because it combos a little bit with how yellow has been playing recently, where yellow wants to basically just start adding your security to your hand or start self-removing it. So we could start seeing a little bit more of a yellow-purple hybrid deck slowly form with cards like these, Dan Devimon, and some other cards that have been coming out in yellow that just reduce your own security. So I definitely think this is going to be a pretty interesting card to look out for, and definitely could spawn some new decks or be a part of a lot of new decks. Next up, we have a new red option card, Inherited the Power of Dragons. So, as I mentioned before, it's a red option card that costs 3, and its main ability is you get to draw 2 cards. Then, if you have a Digimon with Greymon or Drawmon in its name on your field, then one of your opponent's Digimon with 4000 DP or lower gets destroyed, and then its security effect is triggering its main effect. I really like this card because it just not only is a form of removal for a lot of weaker Digimon, but it's also drawing you 2 cards, so you're still getting a whole bunch of value out of it, and it's not necessarily that hard to have a card with Greymon or Dramon in it, considering there's just a lot of those cards, especially in the color red already. So I definitely think that this is going to be a pretty decent option card to think about and to play around, just because you're going to be able to get some good value out of it. Next up, we have Hell's Gate. So Hell's Gate is a purple option card. It costs 6 to play, and its main ability is you get to destroy 1 level 6 or above Digimon, and then its security effect is adding this to your hand. So this is a really powerful card considering it's supposed to synergize with Plutomon, where you use Plutomon's ability to just basically play this card for free. So it adding itself from the security to your hand just is allowing it to get into your hand. So that way, when you use Plutomon's ability to play it for free, you just destroy a level 6 or above. On top of which, just destroying a level 6 or above Digimon is a very, very powerful ability, because that's just like the key focal point for a lot of players' decks, is just banking on your level 6 or above Digimon, doing a whole bunch of work, dealing a whole bunch of damage, and this is definitely a good removal card for purple to just help deal with a lot of those decks and strategies and kind of like start to control the board a little bit better. So I definitely think this card is going to be a pretty decent card, especially in those decks where they want to reduce the cost of your options. That only just makes playing this card even more efficient. Next up, we have a couple of vanilla cards. So this is basically just another Auroramon clone, where it's just 2 to play, 2 to Digivolve, 5000 DP. So this is just a very, very powerful card for the Rookie Rush strategy, because now they get a lot more bigger bodies for a lot less initial play cost, because they're not necessarily looking to Digivolve a whole lot. So this is just going to be a very fantastic card for Rookie Rush, because you're already playing Auroramon for the same reasons, so why not play this card? We already had a Gooniemon already shown, so there's nothing really new to talk about here. He could just Digivolve off of a level 3 red Tamer, so just alright. And then we have a Gaumon. So Gaumon gives the inheritable skill that's very similar to Lalamon's, where during your turn, if this card was used for the Digiburst ability and is sent to the trash, then it goes into your hand instead. So that's just really good because it just allows you to recycle a lot of your cards when you use the Digiburst ability, because ordinarily you'd lose them, and this is just a way to not really lose them. Then we have a virus-type Falcomon that is basically just the yellow clone of Auroramon, which, again, is going to be a really interesting card and a really powerful card, because it just helps facilitate a little bit more of those aggressive plays. And then next we have a new Black Gatsumon. So this is a stat line we have just never really seen before, especially on a rookie. So he has an initial play cost of 4, which is rather expensive for rookies. He has a evolution cost of 1, which is not amazing, but it's not awful. You'd prefer them to be at 0, but as a result of his evolution cost of 1, he has 6000 DP. So this is just a really, really powerful rookie card, and I think he's definitely going to be a really interesting option. Usually, Rookie Rush wants to use more cards like the Falcomon over here, just because you don't necessarily care about the DP too much. You care more about the efficiency on the plays of some cards, but sometimes when you're going up against the opponent and they have a Tamer that resets their memory to 3 on the field, then a lot of these hyper-efficient cards actually start to become less efficient. So this is definitely a good card to think about for those scenarios when you just have a whole bunch of memory to use and you don't know exactly how to use it, or you need to make a slightly less efficient power play, but still a power play nonetheless, then this is definitely going to be a good card. I don't know exactly how good this is going to be in the big grand scheme of things on everything that Black is trying to be doing, but it's definitely a very unique card and a very interesting card to look at. Next up, we have Sakuramon. So Sakuramon is basically part of the whole Ragnalordmon strategy. This is just the red half of what the black half was doing, so it's kind of weird that we're seeing it in this set when it could have theoretically been in the last set. But their randomness on set design aside, I think this is pretty good considering this is just a really decent ability to have. So he has the inheritable skill when attacking once per turn. If this Digimon is a level 7, then you get a gain +1 memory. So not only is this good in Ragnarlordmon, but it's also good in all of the Omnimon decks because Omnimon is still a level 7, and the deck definitely wants to have efficiency on its memory, and it's not like the Digitamas in red were doing that much to really benefit the red Omnimon strategy. So I definitely think this card is going to see a lot of play in those red Omnimon decks, and that's also going to help push those red Omni decks just a little bit further than what they have been before, and it's definitely going to be making them a lot more dangerous in the long run. Next up, we have Bukoman. So Bukoman is another Digitama with a pretty decent inheritable skill, where it gives the when attacking ability, you get to trash the Digivolution card of the bottom of one of your opponent's Digimon that is level 4 or lower. So I don't necessarily think this ability is that great, considering like a big part of the blue Digitama lineup that a lot of people have been using or leaning towards is more just on the efficiency of drawing cards. So if you're really trying to play into this removing the Digimon's Digivolution sources strategy, then yeah, this is a pretty decent Digitama for that, but I just think the efficiency and the value of drawing cards over this is definitely going to make all of those Digimon a lot better Digitama to use than something like Bukoman. So while I don't hate the card, I just don't think the card is going to see that much play. And then lastly, we got a new yellow version of Coralmon. So Coralmon gives the nice inheritable skill when attacking once per turn. If you have 3 or less security, then when this Digimon attacks, one of the opponent's Digimon gets minus 1000 DP. So this is just adding a little bit more removal power to that like yellow War Greymon. And I definitely really like this card for just a whole bunch of other yellow decks that really want to focus on attacking, and having that 3 security is just kind of like yellow's sweet spot. So I definitely think that this is going to be a pretty interesting Digitama for yellow to be playing around with, depending on how you want to build the deck, because minusing the opponent's DP is just a really decent strategy for yellow, and it's kind of just how yellow controls the board. So this is a debuff, so you could use this to also stack with a whole bunch of other minus DP cards to just form a really big minus DP power play. And yeah, this is just a pretty decent Digitama overall. So that is all of the spoilers we got over the past couple of days. It's been quite a really interesting lot of cards that we see. We're definitely seeing a lot of new decks and new strategies slowly start to emerge based on all of the new cards and the new mechanics. And we even see some support for some older decks, which I always like it when games support their older decks because, you know, it doesn't make that investment that first time around feel so not really worthless, but it makes it feel more worthwhile knowing that they are going to be supporting your deck. And I definitely am really liking just what a lot of the set is laying on the table. And if you like the content that you see here and want to help support the channel, I do have a TCG player affiliate link down in the description below. Whenever you use that link to buy your cards, hopefully when the Digimon cards come out, you could use the link to buy some Digimon cards. It does go to help supporting the channel, on top of which I do design some custom playmats, and I do currently have one playmat available over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so you could hop over on there and find my design of the Digimon fields. Right now I have the Nature Spirits one up, and I'm going to be working on the others, so stay tuned for that. And that's kind of all I have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I will see you in the next video.